you stood up and used that tough on crime, phony rhetoric.
That bill was a huge mistake.
There's no question that that crime bill contributed to America's mass incarceration problem.
1994 crime bill, we had a gigantic epidemic in America of violence, particularly in African-American communities. The notion was overwhelmingly supported. It was supported by the Black Caucus in the United States Senate by and large.
And the reason that the crime bill comes up so often is, today in 2019, it is hard for so many people to understand why the federal government would pay states to incarcerate more people, given the devastating consequences we know that incarceration causes. But at the time, policymakers felt the need to respond to what they felt was uncontrolled violence, and this bill was the way that policymakers, that Congress could say, or do something about it.
We don't vote Republican. Let me repeat myself. We don't vote Republican. On a great year, the Republicans can expect 10% of the eligible black vote on a great, fantastic year. On a normal year, they can expect less than 5% of the eligible black vote. So the Republicans technically don't owe us anything because we don't contribute to them being in office. However, the Democrats, they can expect 90% on a regular year, and they can expect 96% on a great year. The only problem is they also offer us nothing, but it's unacceptable because we are putting them in office. So they manage to do things for everybody else except us, but we are the most loyal voters they have. That is my issue with the Democrats. That's like being the #1 customer in a restaurant, and they show you their gratitude for your loyalty by letting everyone else eat free. That is literally what the Democrats do. But most of you all don't know the history behind the Democrats. They have never been pro-black, ever.
Violent crime and the fear it provokes are crippling our society. The crime bill before Congress gives you a chance to do something about it, a chance to be tough and smart.
We need to examine the crime bill and all of the federal bills that galvanized prison spending, that galvanized more arrests, more incarceration, and we need to look to the future. And today, the United States leads the world in terms of incarceration. In fact, if each state were its own country, 23 states would have the highest incarceration rate in the world. Any candidate running for election who's serious about criminal justice reform, who's serious about cutting the prison population by 50%, needs to take a hard look at what has worked and hasn't worked in terms of our past criminal justice policies and understand that federal funding to increase the number of beds in prisons across the country is simply not a way to create safer and healthier communities.
So what makes you think something's going to change because you simply vote? It's not about voting. Voting is the smokescreen. The real issue is making demands for how you want to exist. You think we're living? We're not living. We are not living. We're not. Most of us are impoverished. We're impoverished in an oppressive system.
You got to understand that reparations are an absolute necessity. We're going to get buried alive. We do not have enough to be able to compete in this society. And the further we get away from the civil rights movement, the worse things are going to get. And when people start talking about slavery, don't just talk about slavery. Talk about Jim Crow slavery and benign neglect. You got to understand what slavery was. Slavery is the illegitimate child of racism. Racism still exists. That's slavery. Because what racism does, racism keeps and maintains what was created by slavery. Now, racism is a competitive economic struggle between groups of people for power and wealth. And it's slavery, and racism never existed until the 16th century. And when slavery went out of existence, racism took over.
Wilmington, prior to November 1898, was what the New South could be at the cusp of the 20th century.
There was an unusual degree of black prosperity.
In Wilmington, there were successful black entrepreneurs, doctors, teachers, but also black elected officials. And for a time, that was true throughout the state. Take a look at the politicians on this poster of the 1889 North Carolina House of Representatives. Here at the bottom are black Republican representatives, some from Wilmington. North Carolina also sent 4 black Republicans to the U.S. Congress between 1875 and 1899. The Democratic and Republican parties of 1898 in many ways occupied opposite parts of the political spectrum than they do today.
Most African Americans were voting for the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party was white voters almost exclusively. White supremacy was the central focus of the platform for the Democratic Party.
Tyrone, man, I need you to understand, it's very important that we all show up and vote. So we gotta all show up and vote? Really? Why does voting matter for me? Because, Tyrone, we need to vote because our ancestors died for us to vote. Our ancestors died for us to vote. Oh, for real? Our ancestors, they died? They died so we could vote? For real, yo? What? Yeah, and if you don't vote, then you don't count. You can't complain if you don't vote. You need to vote like your ancestors died for you to vote. So if I don't vote, then I don't count? Really? For real? Whoa. Yeah, and you need to get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole.
Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Yeah.
Yeah, get your booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole. Okay, get your booty to the pole.
The vote is not going to save you. But they told you the vote was going to save you because they don't want you to focus on what you need to focus on. We've been voting for 150 years. It is 2020 and we are still talking about the same things. You understand that? You all understand that we are still talking about the same problems we had 150 years ago. And you still think the vote is going to save you. You still think the vote is going to save you, and we have been doing this for 150 years. 150 years. And then when I said, you know what? Let's try something different this time. Let's try something different. Let's try something different than what we've done for the past 150 years. And you all said no.
So you gonna vote now, right? You're not gonna let me down, right? You it's important to me, man. You gotta make sure you show up and vote, man. For real, yo. You gotta show up and vote. It's important that we vote. Yeah, man. I'm voting, yo. I'm voting. I think I'm gonna vote for Donald Trump. I don't know if I'm gonna vote for Democrats, but I'm gonna vote, man. I'm gonna vote. Wait, you gonna vote for who? Wait, huh? Wait, hold up, wait. The what? Wait, so you saying that you only want me to vote if I vote for your candidate? Like, that sounds like slavery, man. So like, you don't really care if I vote. You care if I vote for your candidate and that's it. Okay, I get the hustle now. Whatever, man. I'm out. Peace. Yeah, Tyrone, man. Man,
Them took over. Racism has gone from meaning slavery to being something biological. Then it moved on in about the 1800s. It turns to be something as a personal behavior or an attitude, and now a bias and a prejudice. Racism has nothing to do with attitudes, with prejudice, and with bias. Racism is a competitive group contest between people for race, resources, and for superiority. And racism is a race without a finish line. I thank you very much.
You see, everybody approaches this thing thinking that the system is broken. The system is not broken. The system is functioning properly. The problem arises when people see that the system is functioning properly and that most of what you see out there is a setup. It's all by design. Anybody telling you they want to change the system is delusional or deceptive. The system is functioning properly. The design of the system is to control the people.
White Americans, since the 60s, when that great confession I talked about happened, have made, I believe, the greatest collective moral evolution ever made anywhere in the world. I was born and raised in a totally segregated society, segregated schools, segregated neighborhoods, segregated, couldn't go to hotels, couldn't work, any number of things. I'd be here all day talking about all of the racist policies that I grew up with. That's not America today. Today I go anywhere I want. This is the tragedy of America's history, is that now in freedom we embrace slavery, we embrace subservience, we embrace victimization, even as we're free.
Well, you can't have a poll tax. They can say you can't have a gas tax or a cigarette tax, anything else. Federal government's telling the states pretty tough what their business is. Now, you can say that they can't discriminate, but I've got to prove that it discriminates, and I can't prove it in Texas. There are more niggers voting there now than white folks. There are more of them buying poll taxes now than white folks. Higher percentage of them. And I can't show that the literacy test is discriminate against because they haven't got any. They got no test at all. Just by God, anybody that can get up and pay $1.06 can vote.
Well, our goal is to win, period, point blank. We don't believe that either of the current candidates are the right solution moving forward. Our goal is to win. We've done everything possible to do so. But we were saying earlier that people's fear is that if they vote for us, it'll keep Trump in, or if they vote for us. And listen to the fear, which gives us so much information, right? The fact that people on the right are concerned that if you vote for us, it's going to make Trump lose. People on the left are concerned that if you vote for us, it's going to make Biden lose. There is something there. There's numbers in that. When's the next time you're going to have a candidate who can honestly capture the hearts and minds of people on both sides to the point where it has both major parties concerned?
But subconsciously and deep down in your being, you all know we're getting nothing for our vote. And so when you even hear somebody suggest that we demand something for our vote, it immediately turns you all off. It's not because what they're saying is wrong. It turns you off because it puts a mirror in front of your face and it makes you examine yourself. And the only reason why we vote without demanding something is because it's a lack of character. It's a lack of character.
Made up of mostly white farmers fed up with the tough economic times, North Carolina populists joined up with Republicans to form what they called the Fusion Party. And in the elections of 1894 and 1896, the Fusion Party defeated the Democrats in sweeping victories statewide. That meant North Carolina now had a government that shared power between black and white politicians, including a newly elected Republican governor. Together, they moved towards reforms that would favor black Americans and working class whites.
This was something that the Democratic Party folks were simply not going to accept.
A multiracial government wasn't just a disappointment for Democrats. It was more like a humiliation. They needed a plan to take back control of the state in the next election. So
the system technically oppresses everybody. The system technically controls everybody. But we're even getting a short end of the stick in that system. How is it possible? How? Do you know what poverty does? Do you know what slavery does? Do you know what conditioning does? Do you know what oppression does? All these things destroy a people's spirit.